Well, hello, Gentlefolk. It is great to see you here. Thank you for spending some time at the Knitted Wardrobe. My name is Jenny and I'm in my knitting nook today. And with the holiday seasons rolling round, I thought it'd be a great time to sit on the couch and share with you some inspiration for the new knitters in your life. So if you've got a loved one who has been talking about picking up needles for the first time, this one is for you. We're literally going to give you the best gift ideas to create a wonderful package for the new knitter in your life. And I could not be more excited about it. So grab your hot cold beverage, grab your needles, grab your yarn, put your feet up on the sofa and join me as I take you through the best ideas that I could come up with for gifts for new knitters. So today I have Foundation Roasters Jingle Beans. I think I had this in the last podcast. I'm not bored of it yet, and I think I may buy another kilo. It's a fantastic kind of like mid-tone, mid-note coffee, so I'd highly recommend that one. So I'll be slurping this as I go through with you. But yes, I'm very well aware that when I was working at my local yarn store, I used to work on a Saturday and I used to teach in the evenings, and it was a fantastic time. I was there for about 2 years, and I used to teach knitting for beginners, and I used to kind of like run the store at the weekend, and that gave me a great ability to learn what people are looking for when it comes to knitting for the first time. And it was always lovely around about this time of year to get people who had never been in a local yarn store, never really heard about knitting, and take them through the store and explain what the person that they were buying for needed in their life. So this time I get to do it with all of you, which is fantastic. And I thought I'd get started first and foremost with needles. Needles come in all shapes and sizes, and I think they are kind of like the foundation of a successful knit. And especially when you're new, it can become, really easy to look at chunky weight yarn and chunky needles. And that's great, and you can definitely go with that. And there was a fashion for it back about 5-6 years ago where everything was chunky, and new knitters were starting with it. The problem that I had when I was teaching on chunky weight yarn and chunky needles for beginners during that fashionable time was actually the needles are too big to maneuver very easily. So if you're looking to start knitting, you want it to be easy as possible. So the needles that I always recommended were the interchangeable needles. So if you go onto your local yarn store website and have a look at there, they'll have usually a tab saying needles, and the one you want are interchangeable. And the first ones I thought I'd show you were these. These are both Knit Pros. These are the metal ones, and these are 5mm. And 5 mils is a great weight great size to start with. They're thick enough to give you a quick-ish knit. So anything you knit with these is going to be pretty quick. It's not like you're doing a lace pattern that will take you hours and hours. And also they're a nice size for most hands to pick them up like a pencil and not feel that they're too cumbersome in the hands. So these are the metal ones, as I said, and they're great and absolutely fantastic if you've got a grippy type yarn. But these are actually not the ones that I would recommend for absolute newbies. I would recommend the same needles, so the Knit Pro interchangeables, but I would advise them in wood. These are mine. I use them all the time. They're beautiful. And these are great. What wooden needles offer the knitter is grip for the yarn to sit on. So when you're new and you're afraid of kind of like all your yarn falling off your needles, the wood actually grips the yarn slightly and makes for a much more comfortable, much more secure much more secure knit, really. And you may be asking, Jenny, they're tiny. What on earth? Well, what you need with them is one of these. And this is a 1 meter interchangeable cable. So you buy this. The reason why I love Knit Pros and why I will always recommend them is they come with these stoppers. So if you're halfway through a knit project and go, I'm bored of this, you can put the stoppers on, take the needles off and use the needles on another project. So your needles are always free and you can keep these on you can keep your project on a holder. These come in different sizes, different colours from Knit Pro. These are black ones. I've also got purple ones. And yeah, they're fantastic. And the other reason why I like the interchangeables rather than the fixed round needles is that precisely that your projects can be many. You're quite free to be able to kind of like put a project on hold, start a new one, and rather than being kind of like kept to a particular project, you can do that. Also, they're quite cost effective. So if you want to have many projects on the go, you only need one set of interchangeables and you can have many cables and it kind of works. So yeah, interchangeable needles with their cables, and start with the wooden. And I would advise a size 4.5 millimeters to 5.5 millimeters. So there's 3 needle sizes as standard in that range. Anything with that would be great. So yeah, get your interchangeable needles, and that would be the first thing I would advise in your little gift bag, your new knitter. So yarn. Yarn is so much fun. I love it. It's the thing that makes knitting. And it's also the best thing to kind of like invest in when you start knitting, I think. So do not skimp on this stage, I think, if you're gifting. And we will talk more about how much yarn you need in a minute. But what is yarn? Yarn is simply the catch-all phrase for any material that you're about to pop on your needles. So that can be acrylic and the synthetics, it can be the superwash and all that kind of like family of yarn, or it can be a raw fibre products like wool, silk, cotton, that kind of thing. Brilliant. So what's the best one to start with? Well, personally, when I was in the local yarn store, I would encourage people to gift their loved ones either superwash merino, which is 100% merino, but when it's been spun in the mills, it's had a coating on it that allows it to be put in the washing machine and washed pretty safely. You do need to be careful with it, but it isn't as volatile and as fragile as a natural product like wool or silk. So a superwash merino is fantastic. So if you're in your local yarn store, anything for a DK weight or a worsted weight would be fantastic to go on your 4.5 to 5.5 millimeter needles. Wonderful. Absolutely love that. And the ones that I would advise are, look like this. This is by Beth at Telling Yarn. This one is by Jess at Loom Wool. And these are both for DK, and these are both DK weights, I should say. What you're looking for is the ply to be not thick, not chunky, and not super thin for lace weight. So again, on the website, if you're looking at your local yarn store website, it'll have a tab at the top that goes yarn, and you can select by weight. And what you're looking for is DK or worsted weight, maybe Aran as well. And those are the weights that I would advise people to purchase in. This is what is this one? I think this is a organic, non-superwash, hand-dyed merino. And this is also 100 grams in weight, which is a perfect kind of like gift for a hat. So you can get a hat out of this. You can get a small cowl, so a small snood. That would be fantastic. And I think one skein would be great. 2 skeins is perfect, right? So I think with new knitters, what often happens is that you naturally go wrong. You don't know what you're doing. You're still learning. You're still trying to work it out. And if you've only got one skein of this, it's quite nerve-wracking. And if you've got another one, you know you've got an extra in the bag. But yeah, this is a hand-dyed one from Jess at Loom Wool. And if you're starting out in knitting, I think supporting the indie dyers is a fantastic route to go. And especially when you're doing small projects when you start out, I think this is a great gift to encourage someone to get into a very natural style of knitting. This one also, same kind of deal. This I think is probably one of my most favourite colours of the year. It's Mrs. Coulter by Beth at Telling Yarns. And yeah, I think they're brilliant together. Great hat. That would make a great hat. The ones that I would avoid. So this is cotton. And if you saw my last podcast, you'll know that I knit my dishcloths. And this is the one I use. It's the Rico cotton, creative cotton. And it's perfect for the size of needles. You need a 4 to 5 millimeter needle for this. It's 50 grams, so to knit a hat you would probably need 2, and it's £2.50 and it's fantastic. It splits like you wouldn't believe, and also it's not very forgiving. So if you're a new knitter, it's very slippy. It slips off the needles quite a lot, and yeah, it's not something I would put in a brand new knitter's hands. Whereas if you have something that's a wool, it's got a good grip to it, and when you put it on a wooden needle, it's not going to slip anywhere, and you can just enjoy your knitting. So yeah, I would go for that. So yes, I would avoid the cotton. Also, it twists as well. So although it may look like a fantastic choice and it comes in a myriad of colours, I would avoid that for a brand new knitter. And also treat them. Hand-dyed yarn's gorgeous. Talking about natural products, this is baby alpaca wool, and I got this at Stitches and Cream in Cornwall, who are a fantastic local yarn store if you're in Falmouth. And they do online, they've got a great online store, as has 2 others that I would love to mention, which is No Frills Knitting in Bristol and also Wool Bath in Bath. So they have great Instagram accounts. Go check them out. They will be so happy to help you. They've got a myriad of yarns that are just fantastic for knitters. You've also got Knitting for Olive, Isaga. You've got, just so many that they stock, and they'll be able to send it out for you. But yes, this one I picked up for a lace weight project. And the reason I wanted to highlight this is that this is too thin. It's just like, there's nothing to it. It's only 2-ply. So this would really frustrate a new knitter. And yeah, I know that Jane down at Stitches and Cream would come up with a phenomenal starter kit if you wanted to pick up the phone and chat with them down at Stitches and Cream. So that's yarn. Stick with DK to Aran worsted weight bases that will happily fit on a 4.5 to 5.5 millimeter needle that's interchangeable. So we're already starting to build up a beautiful little kit. I love it. So good. Patterns are such a personal thing, and this is where I would really advise that you go and do some snooping on your loved one's Instagram account. If they've been talking about wanting to start knitting for a while now, they will be following designers like moi, and also different yarn dyers, different yarn stores, and they will. Instagram is a great place to find out what they're looking at. And I would just stalk who they're following. So there are some really good ideas for patterns to purchase through independent designers, and I think that's a great place to start. But the project that I would advise you to start with is a hat. And you say, what? Hats are fantastic. And actually, it was the normal project that I would start teaching my new beginners groups each autumn. It used the interchangeable needles, and it teaches you how to knit in the round incredibly easily. And if you go to Stacey at verypink.com, her tutorials are amazing, and she will be able to teach how to do that. She also has fantastic hat patterns for new beginners. So you can always go to verypink.com and check her out. But if there are designers that are on that Instagram feed that you're looking at, or that TikTok feed, go to those designers, see if they've got a really good basic hat pattern, and purchase that so you can print it off, use some really nice cardstock or get it printed somewhere that can do that for you, and you can pop that in your gift bag for them. I actually rifled through my old patterns, and I found the worm hat pattern, and I'm really sorry I can't find the name of the designer. But this one I have actually knitted for people many times. It's just knits and purls, which are the basic 2 stitches in knitting. And it's a really good hat for a DK weight on a 4.5 needle. So yes, I will link this below. And if you wanted to kind of like print that off, it's 1 page, you're done. And that can be a great thing to also purchase for. So I've knitted this for a brother of mine actually in blue and grey, and if you wanted it to be 2 tones, just get two different colours of yarn, right? So you could do that in that colour, and it would be really easy. Great first pattern, and you don't have to worry about tension too much. Hats also, I think, because they're on your head and they get scrunched a bit, if there's a few stitches that are a bit wayward, it's not going to matter. So yeah, I would advise a hat pattern, but definitely try and get a design from an indie designer that your loved one is following on the socials, because that means that you're enabling them to step into a world that they're already looking into. So yeah, do that. Give them a treat. That'd be great. So the next one we're going to look at is I was a bit nervous about putting this on the gift list, but I'm putting it on it because actually this is a gift my brother gave me, Fennec. It must have been about 15 years ago now, and it's my Ashford Swift. It's just wonderful. When it's opened out, it looks like an umbrella. But it is the most used tool in my design studio, and I have used it for every single project I've made for the last 15 years nearly now. And yeah, it comes with a clamp, and what you can do is you can put that on and you clamp it to a table, and that's how you secure it. And then I will put some B-roll in here, but what you do is you open this out and you put your skein of wool on it, and it turns around, and it enables you to wind your skein of yarn really, really easily. Keeps the tension nice, and I think if you're looking for a really special gift for your new knitter in your life, then I would get one of these. I got this probably around about 3 months after I started looking at natural dyed fibres, so hand dyed fibres. So I've been using Rowan wool, and Rowan wool is fantastic mass manufactured wool, and they come in balls of wool. And I had wanted to start using hand dyed yarns and skeins of yarns like this from Maya at the Wool Barn. beautiful colour. This is Beach Graft in a soft sock. But yeah, I wanted to start using skeins. And so Fennec bought me this, and actually it totally revolutionised my enjoyment of knitting. And I actually spent 6 hours with this thing the other day, balling up 6 balls of fingering weight for my tumbling leaf sweater. It was a labour of love, but I really enjoyed it. But I enjoyed it because of the Swift. And I actually think this is one of the best presents that I've ever been given, actually. So that's the reason I put that on here as kind of like a gift that I still think a new knitter would really appreciate. And if you have it, believe me, it will be with you for life. And the other thing is that every time I use it, I think of Fen. And yeah, it was just a really kind gift, and still fills me with a lot of joy. So the next part of the gift list, well, what we're going to do with this amazing kind of like gift that you're collecting for your loved one is actually a really good wool wash that you don't need to rinse out. So if you were going to go to the supermarket and buy a wool wash, the classic thing is that you then need to rinse it. And it's advised that each thing that you knit with a natural fibre, like wool, silk, cotton, well, not cotton maybe, but definitely wool, silk, bamboo, merino, that kind of thing, it needs to be hand washed. And I use the Clothes Doctor. This is not sponsored by any means, but this is the best one I've found. It's their Eco Wash for cashmere and wool, and it's got Himalayan cedarwood and orange oil. And my God, the smell is so gorgeous. It smells like Christmas every day in my wardrobe. But yeah, the cedarwood is fantastic, and it helps deter moths who hate the smell of it. But this one is fantastic, and it's got a really gentle pH formulation and will really care for the hard work that has been put into that first ever knit. So definitely get a wool wash that you don't have to rinse afterwards. And yeah, this also happens to be made in Cornwall, which if you follow the Knitted Wardrobe, you'll know is absolutely my heart home. So yes, the Clothes Doctor, number 3, Eco Wash for cashmere and wool. Absolute standard in my laundry room, and wouldn't be without it. So definitely go with that one. You can get others. I used to, before I found these guys, I used to use Ecover, but it did need an extra rinse and it always felt a bit sticky. And if you go to Loop of London, their website, they also have a lot of wool washes that you don't have to rinse, and they're a great independent yarn store in London. So if you're in London based, no doubt you've heard of Loop, but Loop of London is the place to go for that. So yes, silly little thing, but if you pop that in the bundle too, they'll know that you've thought of the whole process of this knitting. So yes, definitely one of those. Next one is a little bit contentious, and I understand why. It's yarn bowls. When you first come to knitting, you think you need a million kind of like different accoutrements. The fact of the matter is you really don't. And the next two are very practical, and also I think as a new knitter, I would like to take the pressure off the perfect knit kit. So the first one we're going to look at is yarn bowls. So this is my favourite yarn bowl, and this is because actually a client at my day job, I'm a physical rehab therapist by day, we had come to the end of working together. They had rehabbed incredibly well and they didn't need to be with me anymore, which is always, graduation day at my job is like the best day ever, when we both kind of know that the work is done and it's just a goodbye session really. But bless them, they had come and they had bought me a yarn bowl, which is probably one of my most, it sits on my windowsill in my dining room and it brings me a lot of joy. I think when you're, as a knitter, when you're gifted beautiful things like this, hand-carved yarn bowl or the yarn swift that Fenwick bought me, when you see them, you just think of that person and how much they've cared for you, which is why I think gifting knitters really high quality, really thoughtful gifts is so important. And I love this. There is nothing that I don't love about this, apart from the fact that it's completely useless. I find yarn bowls really, really irritating. And it's because typically what you do is put your yarn in it. In fact, I'm going to get a ball of yarn and show you exactly what happens. This is Rum and Raisin by Anton at Raw Wool. If you're looking for the best raw wool, Anton has it. I'm such a fangirl for this stuff. Right, so you put your yarn in your bowl, and then you put the yarn naturally sits there. You pull it, and then it tugs, and it's supposed to keep the yarn kind of like organised. But what I always end up with the yarn bowl is that it tugs, and the tension gets very tight if you get it wrong. Great sound though. So yes, also they irritate me because you can't put the knitting project that you're working on in it. So yes, great decoration, and for the person who bought it for me, who I know will never see this video, it is probably one of my most precious gifts that I've been given from a client, but also I don't use it. What I sometimes use it for is putting really kind of inspo yarn that I'm thinking about designing with. Often it will go in there so I can look at it over breakfast when I'm eating, or if I'm just sitting in my dining room and just gazing at it, which I do a lot with yarn, it will go in there, but otherwise it's not used. What is used a lot is my yarn buckets. So this was gifted to me by my godmother. It's from the Futon company, and she gifted this to me years ago now for my knitting, and I love it. This has 8 skeins of yarn, all Anton's raw wool, and this is actually going to be knitted up for a colourwork project for a pattern that I'm releasing next year. The thing I love about it is that it's big enough to be useful. It's small enough to just kind of like kick around and just sit under the sofa, and it's great. This one is used all the frickin' time, and what I love about it, get rid of all those, is that your yarn bowl, the yarn that you're working with fits in there, as does the sweater or the project that you're kind of like working with. So get a basket rather than a yarn bowl, and it's way more practical. It's much more convenient, and I think if you're starting to do sweaters and even scarves, shawls, I mean every project I've knitted for the last few years has been dumped in this. And also it doesn't break, you can take it with you, and yeah, so instead of a yarn bowl, get them a yarn basket. So the other myth buster that I would like to bust is stitch markers. Stitch markers I love, she says, getting them out here. And I use them all the time. I think stitch markers are phenomenal. And I use them for pattern repeats. I use them for beginning of rounds. I just think they're brilliant. But there are two types. And there's one type that if you go on Etsy and look up stitch markers, you'll find ones that look like these. I actually made these. They're beautiful, and they usually come in packs of about 6, and they're great. And if you want to use them, go for it. And they make a really pretty gift. However, I don't use them nearly half as much as these. And these are bulb pins. So they're basically safety pins, but they've got a bulb at the end. Don't know if you can see that. And it means that you can open them up. And if you want to slip them on your project, on the interchangeable cable, you can just do that. You can just clip it on and your stitch is marked. And because they're a bulb pin, so where's my 5mm needle? It's a universal size, so it can slide on there really easily. I also use these for down to 2.5mm needles when I'm doing lace work. So they are fantastic. I love them. And also, these are from Merchant & Mills. I've got two colours. I use the copper and the black. These are the copper ones. And you get a box of them. And you're not stuck to then 6. You've got enough there for a really big lace or colour work project. You can mark anything you want to. And also, the reason I love them is because the subheading to this is a row counter. Row counters are really useful. So I know I am on row 34 because I have my row counter, and I sling my row counter. Sorry, this is a sample for the rock pool shawl that I'm faffing on at the moment. But yeah, you can see there, my row counter, I've just slung on a piece of string and put it to a bulb needle. And these row counters are now 20 years old. And sometimes I need to change the yarn, but that's the string that's holding it in there, but not really. And yeah, those bulb pins are just like the most universal, wonderful stitch markers and all around useful things ever. The other thing I like about them is that if you were to want to do a progress mark, which is quite cool sometimes, I often do it with Sleeve Island. It's like, if I mark this point in an hour, how much can I knit? So you just get your knitting, get your bulb pin, shove it in, and then you've marked your knitting. So you've marked that point, which will never need to move again. So yeah, 2 boxes of bulb pins, or 1 box. Copper and black are my favourites. And yeah, I find these much more useful than a 6-pack of pretty stitch markers. Although pretty stitch markers are useful too. Project bags. Project bags are so much fun, and they differ from the yarn basket for 2 major reasons. The first being is that you can take a project bag anywhere with you. And I knit in the pub, I take it to friends' houses, I knit in the park, I knit everywhere I can. So my projects are always in a project bag, which are fantastic. They come in many shapes and sizes. This one was actually gifted to me by the Knitting Swan. And this is probably the most useful size that you can have for travel, for a hat or a scarf or a shawl. So this is a perfect size for your new knitter. And yeah, Teo at the Knitting Swan very kindly gifted this to me after I had purchased the large one, the quilted one, for a sweater project bag. But this one's great. It fits in my handbag. And at the moment it's filled with the rock pool shawl design that I'm working on. So it has my little journal here that I keep all my design work in, and 2 small skeins of yarn, and also the actual project that I'm working on at the moment. So that's definitely my travel one at the moment for the rock pool shawl, and a lovely design by Teo. So yes, I would definitely advise that kind of size. The other ones that I really like are my new one, which if you've been following me on Instagram, you'll know that I'm putting and actually on YouTube Shorts. How could I forget that? But I've been knitting I I haven't been knitting it. I haven't knitted it yet. I haven't actually cast on. But I've been enjoying the Advent knits by the Camel Yarn. And I am going to knit the Stella Quilt Cushion by Laura Penrose. I'm knitting this one with that kit. And yeah, beautiful. But I'm putting it in this size. And this is by Emma at Eldenwood Crafts. It's a beautiful, beautiful project bag. And the reason I like this one, and it's a medium size project bag, is that if we take the pattern out, but if you look inside it, it's got pockets and all my yarn babies. Look at that, they're so cute. Oh, those colours are just joyful. But yeah, the pockets in there are fantastic. And your loved one can put phones, wallets, keys, patterns, notions, everything in those pockets. And yeah, I really love it. I also love the fact that the handle's really robust and it's really good so you can just drag it around with you. Also, I don't do this. I don't like doing it, is that you can't, some people do put it around their wrists so they can carry their yarn in the project bag whilst they're knitting and walking. I think that's a bit much. It's a bit much for me. But yeah, that's a good size one. And the other one I'd like to share is this one, which is made by my godmother. She's a home sewer, and Jean made this for me years ago now. She also brought me the yarn baskets, but she made me this when I first started knitting. So we're talking a while ago now. And it's just a drawstring pouch bag. But again, one of my favourite things. It's lined, it's just made with a lot of love and is holding my girl's best friend shawl, which is on time out at the moment. But yeah, this one has actually been with me the longest and has travelled around the world. Actually, this has been on many flights before I gave up flying. And yeah, goes in my handbag. Well, goes in my bag, and yeah, travels with me. So there we have it. Those are all the things that I would love to encourage you to spoil your loved one, either over the holiday times, at the end of the year, or for Christmases and birthdays and everything in between. I think what's lovely is that if you purchase a yarn basket, it's really easy to put all the things in it and just wrap it up. So you can put your kind of like your project bag in there, a couple of skeins, and you've got your nice wash kits, and yeah, you've got your notions in there, and you've got your needles, and then you've got your pattern, she says, reaching over and getting it. And I think all of that in there, if you were to wrap that up in kind of like brown paper with big string, and they can open that, and you just have like the most beautiful gift for a new knitter to really encourage them to get knitting in the new year. But yeah, I think that's just, that would just fill me with so much joy. The only thing that would kind of like be separate is the yarn swift, and you can have that on the side. But I think if you were to kind of like give those to your loved one to help them start their knitting journey, it would be wonderful. Also, let them know about this channel. It'd be great if you could like, subscribe, share, do the thing. That would be fantastic. We're getting to 100,000. I wish. Let's start with 1,000, shall we? We're getting to 1,000 subscribers, and as a giveaway, when we hit that number, I'm actually giving 3 people a skein of the Wool Barn's beautiful sock yarn, and they are going to be sent that with the Equinox shawl pattern by Yvonne at the Bay Tree Studio. So if you'd like to get your hands on some hand-dyed yarn and a beautiful cowl pattern that has been definitely highlighted in the last 2 podcasts, go back to see them. I'm sure they're linked here or below. Yes, that would be fantastic. So like, subscribe, share, comment, do the thing. It's been great meeting you if you're new here. Thank you so much, Gentlefolk, for hanging out with us. It's been a great time. And I hope that this really inspires you to get to your local yarn store, go support some really awesome indie businesses, or go online. And here in the UK, Stitches and Cream, the Wool Bath, and also No Frills Knitting offer brilliant service. And those are just 3 of the many that I could name. I know there are loads here in the UK. But yeah, go support your knitting loved one. Go support some really awesome people in our industry. And thank you so much for enjoying your hot cold beverage on the sofa with me. And I look forward to the next podcast, which will be the last podcast of the year. And we will be hunkering down with the 2 projects that are just filling my heart with a lot of joy at the moment. We'll be talking about the Tumbling Leaves sweater, because it will be the day before cast on day, Christmas Eve. And also we'll be talking about the Rockpool shawl, which will just by then we'll have just so much news about that. And that will be a really awesome project to start with our test knitters and my tech editor Rachel in the new year. So join me next time for a fun-packed end of year podcast. I wish you well. Have a great few weeks. May your knitting bring you joy, and may your frogging be rare. And let me know what's on your needles soon. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.